Kiyaya and I have been waiting all week to share the next few chapters of Robert Kimmel Smith's The War with Grandpa. The war is really heating up now between Peter and Grandpa Jack. Can't wait to find out what happens after Peter discovers all of the pieces of the Monopoly game missing. It all starts now as we continue with Robert Kimmel Smith's The War with Grandpa, chapters 25 through 29. On Get Cozy, it's story time with Kiyaya and Daniel. Are such an important part of our lives. Join my friend Kiyaya and I for Get Cozy, because it's story time with Kiyaya and Daniel, where we share some of the greatest picture books and chapters from children's and young adult literature to inspire you to keep embedding literacy into your days. Chapter 25, and Dirty Words. I will not put down here the actual words that Billy and Steve said. I know I set out to tell the story like it happened, but I don't want to put those words down on paper, especially in a story for my teacher to read. So I will make up some words to use instead of the real ones. I can't believe this, Billy said. What a Grimmets McPlank thing to do. Exactly, Steve said. It's Rorvish. Only a Mackenstop would put in a furzy trick like this, Billy said. Wait a minute, I said, and don't say that about my grandpa. I'll say what I like, Billy said. He was really mad. He's a Mackenstop. How can you deny it? He is not a Mackenstop, I said in a loud voice. My grandpa is a great guy. And he pulls furzy tricks, Steve said. Steve had me there. It was pretty furzy, all right. Maybe, I said, but I sure have given him a couple of reasons for it. I started this war, don't forget. Well, the guys went on and on for a while, saying some more Rorvish things about Grandpa, and I defended him. It took some time for all of us to simmer down. Then Steve got that funny look on his face and shut up while Billy ran down at the mouth. It may be terrific, Steve said then. What's so terrific about it? Billy asked. He has risen to the bait, don't you see? Said Steve. I mean, he's in the game now. He wants to play. And that's good. We can't play Monopoly now. And you say it's good? Said Billy. You've got your grandpa involved now, Steve said, ignoring Billy. He's feeling the pressure. Now, you've got to keep it up. How? I said. Attack. 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 Steve said. Yeah, Billy said. Hit him again. I'm not so sure, I said. I really wasn't sure either. Burn his underwear, Billy said. What? I didn't think I heard Billy right. Sneak in, grab all his underwear, and burn it. A man can't go anywhere without his underwear. And how do you burn underwear? I asked sarcastically. Throw it in the furnace, Billy said. Don't be stupid, I said. I wouldn't go anywhere near our furnace for anything, much less throw underwear in it. Rip it up then, Billy said. Just throw it in the trash. But do it. Not on your life, I said. You're not a secret warrior, Billy said. You're a chicken. I'm a grandson, I said. There are some things I'm not going to do, no matter how much my friends egg me on. Chicken, Billy said. It's not your war, I said. Gribbets McPlank, Billy called me, which he knows I don't like. I didn't say anything back. You've got to do something, Steve said. I will, I said. What? Steve asked. I don't know. When? Sometime. Someplace, I said. Steve and Billy both laughed at me then, and in a little bit they left, both of them, mad at me, and me annoyed with them. So Grandpa's first attack really worked after all. It took 3 good friends and made them rorvish with each other. Chapter 26. Rocker and Roll. You can bet your life I went looking for Grandpa right after the boys left. But he was too clever for me. He hung around in the kitchen where Mom was preparing dinner. Then he played a few hands of casino with Jenny. By that time, Dad was home from the office. I didn't get to speak to him alone and in private until after school the next day. And he was up in my room when I got home. He had his big toolbox up there, and he was sitting on my bed carving a little piece of wood with his knife. "Hello, Pete," he said in a friendly way. "How was school today?" I put my knapsack down. "A lot you care," I said. "I care. I care," Grandpa said. "How did you know we were going to play Monopoly?" I asked him. "Aha," he grinned. "A military secret." "I suppose you think it was funny." Grandpa chuckled, "Wasn't it? Here you guys get together to play a game and then surprise!" Grandpa took the little piece of wood and knelt down next to my rocking chair. Then he tried to fit it into the hole in the back of the chair where the arm kept coming loose. "Just a touch too big," he said. "You're fixing my rocker?" I said. "Trying to," Grandpa said. He had a piece of sandpaper and was rubbing that little piece of wood like crazy. "Are you going to glue it again?" I asked. "Nope," said Grandpa. "Glue won't do it. I'm repegging it, Pete. You see this hole in the back of the arm? I took the old peg out. It used to fit in this other hole here in the back of the rocker." Grandpa tried to put the little piece of wood into place, but it wouldn't fit. "Just a little more sanding now," he said. "What about all the stuff from my Monopoly game? Can I have it back now?" "Not until," he said. "Until what?" "Until our little disagreement, or whatever you want to call it, is over." I looked at Grandpa, but he was busy sanding. "I don't think that's fair," I said. "It's not," he said. "Let's just say your Monopoly pieces are prisoners of war. As soon as we make peace, back they come." "I'll never do that, not until you give up my room." "Then they'll stay prisoners a long time," Grandpa said. He took a pair of pliers and gripped them around the middle of the wooden peg. Then he stuck it into the armhole and kind of twisted it, while pushing all the time. It took a lot of effort, but Grandpa had big hands and big muscles, and it finally went into the hole about halfway. "Got it," Grandpa said. "Solid as the Rock of Gibraltar." "I gave you back your slippers," I said. "It seems to me that I had to come up here and find those slippers myself," he said. "I didn't see you hand them over, Pete." I thought about that while Grandpa put the pliers away and got out a hammer from the toolbox. The hammer had a rubber tip on the hitting part. "I'm gonna have to get you back for this," I said. "The secret warrior will strike again." "I know that," Grandpa said, grinning. "That's the fun of it." I couldn't believe he'd say that. "You think it's fun?" "Sure is," he answered. "Oh, it took me a while to see it. And then I realized something. I had darn near lost my whole sense of humor. Hadn't had a good time for ages and ages. Not the last year, anyway. Imagine me slapping you like that. What a fool thing to do." He lined up the hole in the back of the rocker with the peg that was stuck in the arm. Now watch this, Pete, old boy. Tap, tap, tap. That's all it took. 3 good taps with Grandpa's hammer, and the arm of the rocker was attached to the back. I sat right down in the rocker and tried it out. It was solid, just like Grandpa said. You're a good fixer, I said. Thanks. I kissed his forehead. I'm the best, Grandpa said. You know, Pete, I used to build whole houses from the bottom up. Still would if it wasn't for this bum leg. But I'm starting to feel good again. Got my old pizzazz back, I think. There's a lot of things in this house that need fixing, and I'm the man for the job, kiddo. He gave me a hug then, and it felt good. But when he let me go, I looked at him and said, I'm going to get you for that Monopoly trick, you know. Sure you will, he said. Then he laughed. I can hardly wait. Chapter 27. Go fish. I was thinking pretty hard about how I was going to get back at Grandpa. It wasn't easy. There were a lot of things I could do and a lot of things I'd never do. Like burning his underwear, for instance. I didn't want to do something I'd be sorry for later. I thought about, and then actually tried to steal his toolbox and hide it. But I found the thing was too big and heavy that just thinking about carrying it up 3 flights of stairs from the basement to hide it in the attic was enough to make me tired. Then I figured out what I'd do. But before I had a chance to do it, I spent a day with Grandpa I want to tell about. On Friday night, Grandpa asked me if I'd ever gone fishing. I told him no, I hadn't. Dad was not a fisherman, and the only time I ever saw a live fish was in the big tank at the fish store. Unless you count the lobster I saw once in a restaurant. But he was cooked. Or the goldfish I had once for about a week until he died. Well, Grandpa said, I'm thinking about going out tomorrow morning to catch us a mess of flounder. I'd sure appreciate the company, Petey, and I think you'd like it too. I wasn't so sure I'd like it. You won't go out in the ocean, will you? I asked. Nope, just a couple of 100 yards from shore in Cold Spring Harbor. Where's that? A short ride away, maybe 30 miles or so. We wouldn't run into anything big and dangerous, would we? Like what? Grandpa asked. Like Jaws. Grandpa laughed. Well now, he said, I never thought of that. I don't think we'll meet up with Jaws, Petey. Leastways, I never have in all the times I fished out there. Okay then, I said, feeling relieved. Grandpa told me we'd be getting up very early the next day. But when he told me to set my alarm for 4:30 a.m., I couldn't believe it. That's the middle of the night, I said. You've got to get up pretty early to outsmart flounder, he said. Did you ever get up out of bed at 4:30 in the morning? It's pitch black outside then. I washed and dressed and put on all the clothing Grandpa said I'd need. Old jeans, t-shirt, a flannel shirt, an old sweater over that, and my hooded sweatshirt jacket to go on top. Grandpa was down in the kitchen working on a bunch of sandwiches to take along. Ham and bologna, he said. That okay with you? Fine, I said. No mustard on mine. Okay, he said. You should never take tuna or any other fish sandwiches when you go out fishing. It scares away the fish. How could that be? I asked. Don't know, said Grandpa, but I believe it. He put the bag of sandwiches into a vinyl zipper bag, along with a thermos of cold milk for me. He had another big old thermos, he said, we'd fill with hot coffee on the way. If you're hungry, Grandpa told me, take some bread or crackers because we weren't going to eat breakfast for an hour or so. I told him I wasn't hungry when I was that sleepy. We stepped out onto the front porch into the black morning. I peeked into the milk box near the door. The milkman wasn't even here yet, and we're leaving, I said. Why do we have to go fishing so early? I asked. Won't the fish be there in the afternoon, too? Tides, Grandpa said as we went to Mom's car. Before I got into the front seat, I squinted up into the black sky. The stars looked like asterisks. Grandpa drove slowly and carefully through the city streets, then turned onto the interstate highway. High tides, Grandpa explained to me, are when most of the fish like to feed. The water comes into the harbor and brings a lot of things fish like to eat. So if you drop your hook in the incoming tide, see, Mr. Fish thinks here's a tasty nibble, then takes your bait. That's why we have to be out on the water by 7 o'clock today, because the high tide comes at 9:07 exactly. He looked over at me in the dark. You do know what a tide is, don't you? It's when the water gets higher and lower, I said. But what makes it do that? The moon, Grandpa said. I thought he was making a joke. How about the stars, I said, or mountains or trees maybe? Grandpa chuckled. Nope, just the moon. And on the full moon you get your highest tides of the month. It's called gravitational pull, Pete. And it's true. You can look it up sometime. People keep charts of tides, and they can tell you when each tide will come for years and years ahead. The tide is very important. Must be, I said. It pulled me right out of bed at 4:30 in the morning, didn't it? We stopped at a diner a little while later and had breakfast. It was only about 5 o'clock in the morning, the earliest I ever had breakfast in my life. Grandpa had the waitress fill his thermos with coffee, and we hit the road again. Grandpa was humming along with a song on the radio. He seemed very happy. Ahead of us, the sky was beginning to lighten as dawn came up. Ain't it great? Grandpa grinned at me. Just us two gents out on the road, footloose and fancy-free. Don't you love it? It did feel good being out and alone with Grandpa. We got to Cold Spring Harbor just as the sun was peeping, all red and gold at the edge of the sky. Grandpa drove down to the water and parked near Bill's Boat and Bait Shop. I have to tell something true right here. Inside that place, it smelled so awful. There ought to be a law against it. It smelled like rotten fish had been left there for about a year. That smell could gross out my whole class, maybe even the whole school. We got 2 little pails of bait and walked down the dock on the other side to where the rowboats were tied up. Grandpa helped me into my life vest and put one on himself. Then we put all our stuff into the boat. It had a wide, flat bottom, and Grandpa tucked our fishing rods and tackle under the front seat, then helped me in. Safety first, he told me. No standing up. Sit in one place on the seat and tell me beforehand if you want to move around. Aye, aye, sir, I said, and made him grin. Grandpa untied us from the dock, put the oars into place, and rowed us out into the harbor. It was neat traveling across the smooth water in a small boat, the sunlight dancing on the water and a cool breeze in my face. I love it, I said to Grandpa, and he smiled. There's a whole lot more to tell about that day, but this chapter is much too long already. I could tell about Grandpa teaching me to bait a hook with a worm or a piece of dead clam, about how you drop your hook until you feel the bottom and then take up just enough slack in your line, or the fantastic feeling when a flounder takes the bait and starts to wiggle and jump around, and how you have to pull him in so careful and slow, and getting him up and into the boat. Almost everything about that day was wonderful. We caught a whole lot of fish, more than 20. I got so hungry I ate my first sandwich before 9 o'clock. I learned how to row a boat. It was hard to do, but I rowed us partway back to the dock. I learned how to clean the fish and get the scales off. It was an adventure. Exciting, thrilling, and just a little bit of danger behind it. And I loved every minute of it. We're going to do this again, I told Grandpa on the way home. You bet we are, he said. And we have gone fishing together a lot, many times since that first day. Once we even took Jenny along, and she liked it too. But nothing will ever make me forget that first time alone with Grandpa. So you can see why I felt a little sad later that night, when I sneaked into my old room and stole Grandpa's wristwatch. Chapter 28, Playing Hardball. It did not take Grandpa too long to discover that his watch was missing, and I guess he didn't have to walk around trying to figure out where it had gone. He came upstairs the next morning. It was a Sunday, and I was waiting around for Mom and Dad to wake up so I could go downstairs for breakfast. I heard Grandpa coming and grabbed a book so I could pretend to be reading. Grandpa knocked on my door ever so lightly, then pushed it open a crack to look in. Awake, I see, he said. He came in and sat down in my rocker. He was wearing his pajamas, robe, and slippers. A funny thing happened this morning, he said. I went to slip my watch on and guess what? It seemed to be missing from my dresser. Is that so? I said in a casual way. That's a fact. Well, I said, maybe there was a thief who came into the house last night and stole it. Don't think so, Grandpa said, seeing as how my wallet was on the dresser too, right next to my watch. And it wasn't even touched. I had quite a few dollars in it too. Maybe it was a very dumb thief, I said, or a thief who only needed a watch. Grandpa looked at me and grinned. I didn't blame him. What I'd said sounded stupid to me too. How come you didn't leave a note? Grandpa said. I think we're past all that, I said. Maybe so. I took your watch, I said. We both know that. Grandpa kind of shook his head a little. I was kind of thinking that maybe our little war was over, he said, especially after yesterday. I had a good time fishing with you, Pete. You're very good company. Well, I said, it wasn't your average kind of day for me either. I had one of the best days of my life with you. But, I said, and sort of shrugged, doesn't change things, Grandpa. So I see. There's something I want, and you have, and I don't know what else to do except fight for what's mine, I said. Too bad, Grandpa said, but look, Petey, I have a special reason for wanting my watch back. It was a gift from Grandma, you see, on our 40th wedding anniversary. I treasure it, son. Well, now I felt like the most miserable, low-down person in the whole wide world, but I wasn't about to give up. It's in a safe place, Grandpa, I said, and I'll take good care of it. I didn't have to take care of it at all, because it was wrapped up nice and snug in a pair of my white socks and hidden away in a tennis ball can in the bottom of my camp trunk. I could probably find it if I looked, Grandpa said. I don't think so, I said. I'm pretty good at looking, Grandpa said. When you're in school, Pete, I've got all day to turn this place over. You could look for 1,000,000 years and never find it, I said. Grandpa sighed and rocked a few times in the chair. I'd rather you handed it back by yourself, he said. No way, I said. Not until you give me my room back. I've heard that before, he said. How about if I say please? Look, Grandpa, I said. All you have to do is tell Mom and Dad that you want to switch rooms with me. That's easy, isn't it? Grandpa took a long look in my eyes, rocking so gently in my chair. You're really like a broken record, you know that? He said. I only want what's rightly mine, I said. So Grandpa said, now we're playing hardball, huh? I'm not playing, I said. No room? No watch. Fair enough, Grandpa said. He got up and slowly walked to the door. But from now on, he said, you'd better watch out. Chapter 29. Waiting for the other shoe to drop. Did you ever know something terrible was going to happen, but you didn't know when? That's the way I felt that whole time when Grandpa waited before striking back at me. It was real smart of him, diabolical if you want to know the truth. I walked around going crazy for about a week. I mean, it's hard to be calm when you know someone is going to do something to you and you don't know what it is or when it's going to happen. I lay awake without sleeping a few nights wondering when the blow was going to come down. It reminded me of the story about an old Greek guy named Damocles, who went to a party where they hung a sword over his head by a hair. It had to be either a very skinny sword or a very fat hair. But either way, it couldn't have been too comfortable to be waiting for that sword to come down and slice you into human chicken parts. I felt like I was in the dentist's office waiting my turn, wondering how much it was going to hurt. It's the same feeling I get in school when just before a test, when everything I studied just jumps right out of my head. You could ask me my own name, and before a test, and I might not know it. And Grandpa was teasing me, which didn't help a bit. You look nervous, he'd say. I am, for goodness sakes, I'd say. I wish you'd do something already. Patience, he'd say with a funny smile that gave me a chill. Psychological warfare, right? I mean, he was messing with my mind. And the more he waited, the more messed up I got. I left one of my school books home one day. Just plain forgot it. I knew why, because I was too busy worrying about what kind of trick he was going to pull on me. Grandpa told me a joke one afternoon. It was about a guy who lived below a man who took off only one shoe when he got into bed at night. The man below couldn't hardly sleep, waiting for the other shoe to drop. I didn't think it was very funny. Kiyaya and I hope you enjoyed this installment of Robert Kimmel Smith's The War with Grandpa. Friends, what do you think the other shoe is going to be when it drops? What do you think Grandpa's trick will be on Peter? Share your thoughts and your predictions with us on our social media, at Stitching Wolf on Facebook and Instagram, or send them to us through email. Get cozy at STITCHINGwolfdesigns.com. Until we meet again, remember to stay happy and healthy, and to remember, that's right, Kiyaya, reading is power.